Manna from heaven, the scientific mystery behind the Israelites' wilderness survival bread. Imagine the landscape of the Sinai Peninsula. It is one of the most brutal, unforgiving environments on planet Earth. It is a vast, scorching expanse of jagged red granite, blinding white sand, and dry, cracked riverbeds known as wadis. Surface water is almost non-existent. The daytime temperatures can easily exceed 100 degrees Fahrenheit, and at night the temperature plummets, leaving the desert freezing and covered in a thin layer of dew. Now imagine dropping roughly 1 million newly freed refugees into the middle of this absolute wasteland. According to the book of Exodus, shortly after the Israelites escaped the plagues of Egypt and miraculously crossed the Red Sea, the euphoric, dizzying high of liberation wore off. It was rapidly replaced by the terrifying, immediate reality of starvation. The rations they had hastily packed from Egypt ran out. The entire camp began to panic. They looked at the barren lunar horizon and realized they had marched out of the bread baskets of the Nile Delta only to die of famine in the dust. They even began to romanticize their enslavement, crying out to Moses, "If only we had died by the Lord's hand in Egypt. There we sat around pots of meat and ate all the food we wanted. But you have brought us out into this desert to starve this entire assembly to death." And then, the text records one of the most famous miracles in religious history. In the morning, after the desert dew evaporated, a fine, flake-like substance covered the desert floor. The text says it was white like coriander seed, and when baked, it tasted like wafers made with honey. The Israelites stared at it in bewilderment and asked in Hebrew, "Manhu?" which literally translates to, "What is it?" From that question, the substance got its name, manna. It became the ultimate survival food, the staple diet that sustained an entire civilization for 40 years in the wilderness. For millennia, this story has been preached and painted as the ultimate example of supernatural provision. Literal loaves of freshly baked, glowing bread raining down from the clouds. But what if we take a closer look at the unique ecology of the Sinai Desert? What if we ask botanists, entomologists, and desert survival experts to analyze the ancient descriptions of manna? Can we find a biological, chemical fingerprint for this legendary bread from heaven? Welcome to History Unlayered. I'm your host, Holy Timelines. Today, we are putting on our hiking boots and walking into the desert. We are going to look at migratory bird patterns, plant biology, desert lichens, and the fascinating world of scale insects. Today, we are investigating the scientific mystery of manna. To solve the mystery of manna, we have to start by acting like detectives at a crime scene. We need to look closely at the physical description provided by our primary witnesses, the writers of the books of Exodus and Numbers. They leave us several highly specific clues about how this substance behaved. Clue number 1. It appeared on the ground in the morning, left behind after the dew evaporated. Clue number 2. It was small, round, and flaky, resembling coriander seed or light hoarfrost. Clue number 3. It had a distinctively sweet taste, like honey or fresh oil. Clue number 4. It had a strict expiration date. If you tried to save it overnight, it bred worms and began to stink. And clue number 5. It had a very narrow harvesting window. When the sun grew hot, the manna physically melted away into the sand. For centuries, European theologians couldn't make sense of these details, but modern biologists looking at these 5 clues immediately recognize a very specific, well-documented ecological phenomenon native to the Middle East. They don't look up at the clouds. They look down at a specific desert shrub, the tamarisk tree. The tamarisk is one of the few plants that thrives in the highly alkaline, arid, salty soil of the Sinai Desert. And living on the branches of the tamarisk tree is a specific type of scale insect, specifically 2 species, Trabutina monopara and Najacoccus serpentinus. In 1927, a renowned entomologist named F.S. Bodenheimer actually organized an expedition to the Sinai Peninsula specifically to study this phenomenon. He wanted to see if the biblical manna was still there. He found exactly what he was looking for. Like aphids, these tiny scale insects survive by piercing the bark of the tamarisk tree and drinking the sap. But the sap of the tamarisk is incredibly rich in carbohydrates, mostly sucrose, far more than the insect's tiny body can process or absorb. To avoid essentially dying of a sugar overdose, the insect has to rapidly excrete the excess sugar. It excretes this pure, carbohydrate-rich syrup in the form of clear, sticky droplets. In the cool, dry air of the desert night, these droplets fall to the ground and undergo a rapid chemical change. The sucrose crystallizes into glucose, fructose, and trehalose, forming small, white, flaky pellets. If you walk through a grove of tamarisk trees in the Sinai Desert in the early morning, the ground looks exactly like it is covered in a light, sweet frost. In fact, the local Bedouin tribes of the Sinai have been harvesting this exact substance for thousands of years. They call it man es-sama, the manna of heaven. They go out at dawn, lay claws under the tamarisk trees, shake the branches, and collect the white crystallized droplets. They boil it down to remove the dirt, clean it, and use it as a powerful sweetener, exactly like honey. And remember those specific biblical clues? The insect excretion perfectly matches the biological behavior of manna. Why did it melt when the sun grew hot? Because it's crystallized sugar. As the desert temperature skyrockets by mid-morning, the crystallized droplets dissolve back into a sticky liquid syrup and soak into the sand. You have to gather it at dawn, or you lose it entirely. And why did it breed worms and stink if the Israelites tried to hoard it overnight in their tents? Because pure, unrefined sugar left exposed in the sweltering heat of a desert camp is an absolute magnet for desert ants, maggots, and rapid bacterial fermentation. Without modern refrigeration or immediate boiling, a pile of insect honeydew will become a rotting, insect-infested, sour-smelling mess within 24 hours. The biological alignment is staggering. The manna of the Exodus perfectly describes the ecological relationship between the tamarisk tree and the scale insect. But as elegant and perfectly matched as the scale insect theory is, it presents a massive, unavoidable nutritional problem. The crystallized honeydew of the tamarisk tree is almost 100% carbohydrates. It is pure sugar and water with almost zero amino acids. While a diet of pure sugar will give you a massive burst of energy and keep you from starving for a few days, you cannot survive on it for 40 years. A human being cannot build muscle, repair tissue, or maintain a healthy immune system without protein and essential vitamins. If the Israelites were only eating insect sugar, they would have quickly succumbed to severe malnutrition and muscle wasting. So, did they have another food source? If we look closely at Exodus chapter 16, we find that the text actually provides the missing half of the nutritional equation. Right before the manna appears in the morning, something else happens the night before. The text reads, "That evening, quail came and covered the camp." Is it possible that a massive flock of birds just happened to land in the middle of a barren desert camp right when 1 million people were starving? Once again, science provides a stunning corroboration. We have to look at the massive migratory patterns of the common quail, Coturnism. Every spring, millions of these small, plump birds migrate from their wintering grounds in Central Africa, flying north toward Europe to breed. To get there, they have to cross the Mediterranean Sea and the Red Sea. Quails are heavily built for short, rapid bursts of speed to escape predators. They're not built for long-distance endurance flying. When these massive flocks finally cross the open water and reach the shores of the Sinai Peninsula, they are absolutely exhausted. They have completely depleted their fat and energy reserves. They fly incredibly low to the ground, often just a few feet high, and when they make landfall, they essentially crash land into the scrub brush. They are so fatigued that they cannot fly again for a day or two. You can literally walk up to them and pick them up off the ground with your bare hands. Roman historians, like Pliny the Elder, recorded ancient sailors encountering flocks of exhausted quail so massive that when they landed on the rigging of ships at sea, their combined weight would literally snap the masts and sink the boats. So let's put the scientific puzzle pieces together. The Israelites are camped in the Sinai during the spring, the exact time of the Passover and the Exodus from Egypt. They are directly in the migratory funnel of the African quail. A massive flock of exhausted birds crash lands into their camp, providing an immediate, staggering abundance of protein. And the next morning, they discover the crystallized, carbohydrate-rich honeydew of the tamarisk tree on the ground. Carbohydrates and protein, the exact biological fuel required to keep a human population alive in the wilderness. But there is a brilliant, terrifying footnote to the quail story. Later, in the book of Numbers chapter 11, the Israelites again demand meat. Another massive flock of quail arrives. The people gorge themselves on the birds, but the text says that while the meat was still in their teeth, a severe plague struck the camp, killing thousands. Can science explain a sudden plague caused by eating quail? Yes. It's a recognized medical condition called Coturnism. During their migration, quail often eat hemlock seeds. The quail are immune to the poison in the hemlock, but the toxins accumulate in the bird's muscle tissue. If a human eats a quail that has recently gorged on hemlock, the human suffers severe acute poisoning. It causes muscle breakdown, kidney failure, and rapid death. The plague that struck the Israelites was almost certainly an outbreak of mass toxicological poisoning, Coturnism, caused by the bird's migratory diet. The biblical account is breathtakingly scientifically accurate. Now, there is also a second, equally fascinating scientific theory regarding the bread itself. Some botanists point away from the tamarisk tree and look instead toward a highly unique desert fungus, Lecanora esculenta, a type of crustose lichen. This lichen grows on rocks and in the harsh, dry soil of the Middle Eastern and Central Asian deserts. During periods of drought, it dries up, shrinks into small, pale, crinkled lumps, and detaches from the rocks. it becomes incredibly light, almost like popcorn or pumice stone. When a strong desert wind blows, it sweeps up millions of these lichen lumps and rolls them across the desert floor. They gather in massive drifts in the valleys, looking exactly like a sudden, miraculous snowfall. Nomadic tribes throughout the Middle East and North Africa have used this lichen as an emergency survival food for centuries. They sweep it up, grind it into a powder, and bake it into a tough, unleavened bread. In fact, we have historical documentation from a massive famine in 1829 in the city of Urmia in modern-day Iran. A huge windstorm blew literal tons of this lichen into the region, blanketing the ground. The people gathered it, baked it, and it saved thousands of people from starvation. The locals literally called it bread from heaven. Whether the original manna was the sweet, crystallized sap of the tamarisk insect, or the wind-blown drifts of desert lichen, or perhaps a combination of both over the 40-year journey, the scientific evidence strongly suggests that the writers of Exodus were not writing a fantasy novel. They were accurately recording highly specific, life-saving ecological phenomena native to the Sinai Peninsula. But if we stop there, if we only look at the biology of the bug, the poison of the quail, or the fungus on the rocks, we miss the most profound part of the manna story. We have to look at the psychology of the manna. We have to look at the rules. According to the text, when Moses introduced this new food to the Israelites, he gave them a very strict, highly unusual set of regulations. He told them, "Gather only what you need for today, an omer per person. Do not keep any of it until morning." Think about the psychological state of the people hearing this command. They have just spent 400 years as slaves in Egypt. Slavery fundamentally wires the human brain for scarcity. When you are a slave, you own nothing. Your food, your labor, and your very body belong to someone else. You survive by hoarding whatever scraps you can hide. A slave's mindset is dominated by the terror of tomorrow. Now they are free, but they are in a barren desert. The anxiety must have been suffocating. When they saw the manna on the ground, the immediate, overwhelming psychological impulse would have been to hoard it, to stuff it into their tents, to fight their neighbors for it, to build a massive stockpile so they would never be hungry again. But Moses says, no, you take exactly what you need for today. Your neighbor takes exactly what they need for today. And tomorrow, you trust that it will be there again. When some of the Israelites ignored the rule and tried to hoard it out of fear, the manna rotted, bred worms, and stank. It was a harsh, visceral lesson in trust. The gathering of the manna was not just a method of feeding people. It was an active, daily psychological reprogramming. God was taking a traumatized population of hoarders and forcing them to practice radical daily dependence. He was rewiring their neuroplasticity. He was teaching them to live in a post-scarcity mindset in the middle of a desert. He was breaking the psychological chains of Egypt. You are no longer slaves hoarding scraps in the dark. You are free people, provided for daily, and you must learn to trust the rhythm of the universe. And then there was the final, most radical rule of manna, the Sabbath. Moses told them that on the 6th day of the week, they were to gather double the amount. And miraculously, on that specific night, the extra manna did not rot. Why? Because on the 7th day, the Sabbath, no manna would appear on the ground. They were commanded to stay in their tents, rest, and eat what they had gathered the day before. In the ancient world, the concept of a mandatory day off was completely unthinkable. In Egypt, the brickmaking never stopped. The machinery of empire demands constant, endless labor. Rest is a luxury reserved solely for the pharaoh and the elite. By hardwiring the Sabbath into the very biological behavior of their food source, God was instituting the first organized labor laws in human history. It was the first strike against the endless grind of production. He was declaring that human beings are not machines. Your value is not determined solely by your daily productivity. You are entitled to rest, simply because you exist. The manna wasn't just physical calories. It was the architectural blueprint for a brand new type of society. A society built on equity, trust, and the sacred, unalienable right to rest. When we examine the story of manna through the lens of entomology, botany, and migratory biology, what are we left with? Does finding a natural explanation for the bread from heaven diminish the miracle? For historians and people of faith alike, it often does the exact opposite. The miracle is not necessarily that God materialized an alien substance out of the vacuum of space, violating the laws of physics. The miracle is the profound, intricate orchestration of the natural world. It is the belief that the migratory patterns of the African quail, the life cycle of a microscopic scale insect on a tamarisk tree, and the wind patterns of the Sinai desert were all perfectly synchronized to intercept 1 million wandering, terrified refugees at the exact moment they were about to starve. The writers of Exodus didn't invent a magical food. They experienced a brutal desert that suddenly, inexplicably, provided for them exactly when they needed it. Whether it was insect honeydew, wind-blown lichen, or the exhausted flight of a million quail, the manna of the Exodus remains a brilliant intersection of survival biology and human psychology. It is a story about how a fragile, traumatized people learned to stop hoarding the trauma of yesterday and simply trust that they would have enough for today. Thanks for listening to History Unlayered. I'm Holy Timelines. Keep checking your boundaries, protect your mind, and keep digging.